It's time for Windows Weekly. Mary Jo Foley's here with Paul Thurrott. We're going to talk about the latest news. The Build conference is coming up. Then it's the Ultrabooks from Intel. Some really exciting things ahead from Microsoft. And a new feature, our code name of the week. It's all ahead next with Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott, episode 220, recorded August 4th, 2011. SharePinters. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Go to Assist Express. Being in IT and not using the right tools can be disastrous. That's why you need Go to Assist, the leader in remote support. Try it free. Visit gotoassist.com/Windows. And by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle your used gadgets. And Newegg.com, the place on the internet to shop for tech. Gazelle it today and receive a gift card from Newegg at newegg.com/trade. And by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that covers Microsoft in all its glory, and we've got two glorious people here to do it. To my right, Mr. Paul Thurrott, the editor-in-chief of the... John, get me Paul's book. It's on my desk. Editor-in-chief of the... I gotta hold up your book, you know. It's right on my blotter there, John. It's right in the middle on the blotter there. You won't know that it's Paul Thurrott's
It's holding
book.
a door open.
No, this one's not. This is your first book, Paul.
Oh.
Somebody sent me this book. Paul Thurrott is the editor-in-chief of the SuperSite for Windows Win, SuperSite.com. He's also editor for Windows IT Pro and the author of this fine book, Microsoft Visual Basic 3.
Oh, jeez.
The Select Lab series.
Yeah, that might in fact be my first book.
According to Andrew Jackson of Melbourne, it is. He says, hopefully Leo finds the book amusing and or useful. The first book ever written by Paul Thurrott. There's an inscription inside the book, apparently.
To Andrew?
It says, no, it says, it says right here. See, it says, Dear Leo, congratulations on your move. Unfortunately, I couldn't buy a brick, so I got you Thurrott's first book, a.k.a. a little brick. Before there was Delphi, there was Visual Basic 3, and it was 16-bit.
That's true.
And you were writing with an Amiga when you wrote this. He's inscribed it with a timely yet personal message from Paul.
Visual Basic will never die.
No,
Love
screw
Paul.
you, Laporte. Okay. And by the way, he says...
Actually, that's Project 7 in the book.
Right. in the sans serif. This is actually was 99 cents on Amazon. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's about time it's selling for what it's worth.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is projects. This is fantastic.
They are projects, yeah. The Visual Basic 6 version of that book has a project to make your own web browser.
Ooh. You could now try that with Python.
That's right.
Yeah. Take that. Also with us, Miss Mary Jo Foley, MJ. Does anybody ever call you MJ?
Yes, they do sometimes.
And then you beat
Do
them
they
up.
live through that? Or?
Mary Jo is a columnist, a blogger, I guess you would say, for the folks at ZDNet. Her blog is called, well, if you just go to allaboutmicrosoft.com, you'll find all of the blogs. That's the easiest way to find it. It's great to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mary Jo. And our topics today start with the celebratory build. We're going to build. What took Microsoft so long? And why is there still no agenda? Paul wrote that. I could tell.
Actually, I did not.
You did not? That's a Mary Jo?
Yes, that is me.
Leo, you know, we're collaborating on this thing now.
Yay.
So you won't be able to tell where I end and she begins, or...
That is your voice, though, when you say, we're going to build. So, just for benefit of those who know not, was ist Bild? Paul,
It's just
Mary
a
Jo.
little show.
Mary Jo wrote the bullet. Let Mary Jo explain build.
Yes. Well, Build is going to be Microsoft's big September conference for anyone who's interested in Windows 8. And it's September 13th through the 16th in Anaheim. And Yeah, we don't have an agenda for it, so we can't really tell you a whole lot more about it, but it's going to be really big, and all questions about everything are going to be answered.
Last time we talked, we said it's kind of a combination of PDC, WinHack, and even a little mix thrown in. Is that an accurate?
Yes, I think that's still accurate.
The bastard child of 100 trade shows.
Are they eliminating I mean, WinHack, I guess, is gone, long gone, but
yeah.
PDC, are they eliminating that?
Maybe.
We don't really know. Maybe.
Yeah. This is cloaked in mystery, Leo. We really don't know.
So WinHack was, and I used to enjoy WinHack, was the hardware conference for people who do hardware that Windows will run on. And that was actually always a fun conference. And then PDC, which we just had a recent, we had 2 in a row, actually, is the developers conference, right?
Yeah, well, so was Mix.
And then Mix is, but Mix is more web-focused.
It was web, and then it turned into web plus phone.
Okay. So it was mobile and web.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't quite understand who owns these shows in a way, right? Microsoft is obviously involved, but I've gotten some indication that Build is, the Windows team's attempt to kind of seize control of the trade show and have their own show.
Oh, that's interesting.
That PDC was another group, or WinHack was another group. I mean, those shows have always been very valuable, and WinHack in particular was always the first place to find out about new OS releases because they would have to show the low-level stuff to the device makers first. But the way they do things now is, the one thing I can say about Build that is just an assumption, but I'm sure is going to be true, is that, they'll give us and show us Windows 8, and it will be one of those what you see is what you get type of deals, because now the way they do things is it's not early disclosure. They show it to you when it's ready to go.
Right. Huh.
Yep.
Isn't this really the problem at Microsoft where you have, it just baffles me that you have this kind of infighting. So you said, it's not, PDC's not ours, so we're going to do our show. Who owns this show?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't seem like a good way to run things, but I guess in a way Google does that too. They want autonomy among the various groups, right? So that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen that cartoon on the web that shows the different organizational structures of different companies? And in Microsoft's case, there are guns pointing from division to division.
Yes.
That's kind of why we're having this conversation, right? Because
the new tagline
the
should be,
developer
"We eat our
division
young."
has one idea, right?
Right.
And then Windows has another idea. The Office team has another idea. So, yeah.
And think about the disclosure schedule, right? You have this developer group that has to be working on low-level and high-level things with regards to Windows 8, but they can't talk about any of it. They can't even let slip that there may be a tool in the next version of Visual Studio that will be very specific to what's going on with Windows 8. That there's this kind of cross-fighting that occurs because, obviously the Windows 8 group is very serious about maintaining a veil of secrecy until they're ready to release information. And, it applies to all these different groups inside Microsoft. Will Windows Phone and Windows merge? I don't know. What about Windows Server? I don't know. There's all this stuff that kind of touches on Windows 8, and none of it can occur publicly until when the Windows guys are ready.
This is from Bonkers World. Amazon, kind of a normal tree. Google, all the hell all over the place. If you can drop the lower third, we could see a little bit better. Facebook is no hierarchy. It's just a web. And then Microsoft, we've got these groups all pointing guns. It's kind of a Mexican standoff, all pointing guns at each other. Apple all comes from the center source. And Oracle has a giant legal department. And then the engineering department, considerably smaller. This is funny. This is good. I think this is about right, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Microsoft
really
part is exactly right.
They must know this, though. Why don't they do something about it?
I think they just have this combative culture. I think this is the type of thing that happens under a particular leader.
It must be what they want, then.
It's not always healthy. When Ray Ozzie was the chief software architect.
What did Ray Ozzie do?
Yeah, by the way, yeah. Yeah, not what would Ray Ozzie do. What did he do?
Ray Ozzie do?
Well, he allowed multiple groups at Microsoft to work on the same basic solutions. And his notion was by competing, the best one will win and will come out ahead of time.
Oh, that's good.
Or will come out ahead. But what really happened was that these things all kind of never went anywhere.
Right.
And that what they really needed to do was have one that had the best ideas of all of them, not three sort of half implemented. Are they ever going to continue? Did I make the wrong bet and pick the wrong sync technology, and oh now it's going away. You know, I mean,
it is confusing. You know, I was doing a piece on back to school, and I was comparing Dropbox and iCloud, and of course I wanted to show Mesh, but you can't go to. I mean, you have to Google it or Bing it because there's no like obvious Mesh Central.
Yep.
And then I mean, it's just very confusing. And then they have different products. There's SkyDrive. Is SkyDrive Mesh? No.
Right. And by the way, but the Mesh storage, if you look at it on the web, is referred to as SkyDrive synced storage. And of course, it exists outside of the 25 gigs of traditional or, you know, otherwise SkyDrive storage that you have. And the whole system, it's just it's not that Mesh is bad. It's just that they do such a bad job of presenting it.
I went to mesh.live.com. I thought that would be good. And it says, well, sign up for Live, which includes Hotmail, Messenger, and SkyDrive.
Yeah.
So it was extremely confusing. And then, of course, when I sign in, there's no mention of Mesh. It's SkyDrive.
Here, Windows Live devices. So these are the devices that are synced.
But this is Mesh.
These are the machine. This is the machine management interface. If you click on that view synced folders thing, above that, you won't be able to actually, access those files from here, but you can see them.
I can see them. I know they're there. There's my stuff.
Yep. So
there's my pictures. Let's see if those pictures. Let's just check those pictures. Can we look? Yeah. That's great. I can see the thumbnails of those pictures.
I know. It's
actually no. I did download it. Look at it.
Well, you download it. No, but you can't see. In other words, you
can't see a thumbnail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just silly.
Oh, wait a minute. It says, "Oh my God, oh my God, it's ruining my system's like gone crazy." Oh, it's thank you. This is like.
I'll have to add this to my list of reasons why I recommend Mesh over Dropbox.
No, this is Mesh.
No, that's what I mean.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I didn't ever say it was perfect.
All that just to see pictures of my legs in the hot tub.
Yikes.
That's attractive. Maybe
like
I should.
Leo Cam.
I didn't really. That wasn't really. I didn't. Never mind. You could take that down now.
At least you're not holding a glass of champagne. Typical Wednesday night for Leo.
Okay, moving right along. Oh, now and I really literally have windows all over the place, and I don't mean.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't even know who this person is. There's a picture. There's a picture.
Oh, that must be the picture. That's the picture you downloaded from Live Mesh.
But I don't even. That's not my picture. It's.
Leo, that's not my concern. The point is, it worked.
I don't know.
You clicked on an image and you got an image. I don't understand what the problem is. Microsoft.
So anything else to say about Build before we move on?
Yes, I have another thing to say about Build.
Yes, MJ.
Build is sold out now.
Oh, really?
Even though there's no agenda,
you
can't register to go now.
Well,
but
you want to go.
Right, but Microsoft said they're going to webcast all the keynotes in real time, and all the rest of the content will also be on the web a day after it happens. So if you're shut out, you can still go.
Oh, that's good.
Virtually.
Yeah. And I wish I had known that before I booked my $3,000 trip, but.
Oh, you were going to go anyway. Come on. You knew you would go.
I have a lengthy, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks there, but yeah.
We don't need an agenda. We know it's going to be all about Windows 8, and everybody wants to know. And if you're a developer, especially if you're interested in mobile or, you're going to go.
Well, this is the moment of truth, right? Because there's been all this speculation over the past 3, 4, or 5 months, whatever it's been, that, when Microsoft said Windows 8, the programming model is all HTML5 and JavaScript and CSS. Of course, all of this, the Silverlight and WPF developers, the .NET guys, all said, whoa, hold on a second. We've just taken years to understand this stuff and get good at it, and now you've never even mentioned it in the context of Windows 8. What's going on, And Microsoft has never publicly given even the slightest indication. Nice.
This is what you need.
Yeah, Visual Basic.
Visual Basic 3. It explains everything.
Classic. Visual Basic Classic.
It's right all in there.
A 16-bit version of Windows, like those applications, that would run nicely on a phone.
That's actually true, isn't it? That's really a good point. That would run really nicely. Wow. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, I do want to talk a little bit more about Windows 8 and all the other great, exciting things that Microsoft's up to. Before we do, though, a mention about our friends at Citrix and GoToAssist Express. If you are in the IT business, using the right tools to get results for clients is it. It's critical. It is what you must do. And, remote access, fixing the problems by logging into their computer is key to all of this. I mean, if you were a surgeon and you were using a rusty scalpel, who would trust you? That's why you should look at GoToAssist Express from Citrix. This is the latest cutting edge for people who are in the IT business. First of all, easy to use for not only for you but for your clients. I mean, you don't want to have to support the support tool. Just, in fact, if you go right now to gotoassist.com/Windows, you can try it out for free for 30 days. And really get a sense of what it can do for you. Things like 8 sessions at once, so you can start an install and then move to the next one and start a scan and move to the next one, up to 8 sessions at the same time. Unattended sessions if your clients allow it. Even if your clients don't have the software. And by the way, you can support Macs and PCs from Macs or PCs. That was a compound Boolean statement, but you're an IT professional. You can figure it out. I don't have to do the variations, do I? No. We're talking, we're amongst friends here. You're not like an IE user, just a little slower than the rest, are you? Paul's going to get on that one, I know. They've been sprayed with dulling spray, Paul. Go to Assist. Let me see if I can open it up here. Look, I got Windows going. Go to Assist, except it's not liking my right click. It thinks I'm right clicking everything. I must have a key stuck. It's all
I got it for you.
It did. I hammered it, and it worked. It worked. GoToAssist.com/Windows. You could sign up right now. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. 30 days absolutely free. And I'll tell you, you're going to absolutely love it. If your clients don't have it installed ahead of time, you just send them a link. They click it. It's a Java thing. It just installs. They say allow, and they're done. GoToAssist.com/Windows. Give it a try today. We know you will love it. 30 days free. 128-bit SSL. 24/7 support for you. You got the drill. Moving right along to our next issue of the day. Google. Oh, this is so fun. The Google, Apple, actually Microsoft is involved in this because Microsoft and Apple joined together to buy the Nortel patents. Then Google came out sniping, saying, what? They said,
this one's beautiful because, from the company that is probably violating more IP than anyone else in the mobile space. What, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, I looked very carefully at what this guy wrote because I wanted to see.
This is, by the way, Google's general counsel, right?
Yeah, I wanted to see if there was ever any explicit explanation of this charge, and there really kind of isn't. It basically boils down to, these guys own patents. They want to make us pay. We don't want to do that. Maybe we'll have to buy our own patents and make them pay too. And it's like, right? Well, that's kind of how the system works.
And by the way, so Google posts a blog post. This lawyer posts a blog post. Microsoft shoots back on Twitter. And then really shoots back saying, by the way, here's the email in which we asked Google to join us in buying these patents to avoid costly litigation.
Well, wait.
But there's more.
There's more. If you look at what that tweet was and the email that they showed, it wasn't about Nortel. It was about Novell.
Oh.
So
I guess they didn't think we'd read it.
They didn't really answer Google's post. They answered a piece of it. So they didn't answer the whole thing.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. You know what? I didn't read it that closely either. I just assumed it was Nortel. So it was Novell.
It was Novell. Because Google brought Novell into it too, and they said, this isn't the first time they've been in a patent cabal. This is the second time. The first time was Novell.
Huh.
Yeah, okay. But see, the bigger issue I have here is, this isn't some little defenseless company that's being held at the mercy of patents from big old bad Microsoft, right? This is like the company that generates an unlimited mountain of cash, that is dominating this industry, by the way. They're not exactly being harmed by this. And, contrary to their sort of vague complaint, this is how business is done. Sorry. It's not like Apple and Microsoft are patent trolls. They're selling products in this market. they have an interest here. You know, this actually makes sense for them to do this. And I find the whole thing to be extremely hypocritical and also, by the way, very reminiscent of what happened to Microsoft in the antitrust trial in the United States, because what Google is really doing with Android, you know, broken down to its basics, is taking its one dominant product and using the revenues from that to basically subsidize its entry into other markets, in this case with Android. You know, they want Android to be free and thus extremely popular, which of course it is, but they're not interested in paying for any intellectual property that they might, in fact, be violating that's protected by patents.
This is Brad Smith responding on this one.
Yeah.
So is he the counsel? What is his?
Brad Smith is, I think he's the
Vice
general
President,
counsel.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's got to figure out how to make a Twitter image go all the way across the screen, though. Brad,
Microsoft. I was actually just going to say to you, I bet that works fine in E9, but I see that you are.
I am using IE9, so I don't know if it's. I don't think it's an IE issue. I think that they put a picture of the Microsoft campus up, but forgot to tile it or whatever. I'm running it way too wide on this little tiny computer.
I find this argument to be tough. You know, their original, right at the beginning of the statement, they say, Android is on fire. We activate over 550,000 Android devices every day. We sell it through a network of 39 hardware makers and 231 wireless carriers. That works out to, I did the math somewhere, 50 million Android-based devices being activated every quarter, and it's only going up.
Wow.
Apple, when you combine Apple, the #1 manufacturer of these mobile devices, combine iPhone and iPad together, sold 30 million in their most record-breaking quarter of all time so far. So Android is really kind of kicking, butt here. And
now TechCrunch posted a kind of unnamed source saying, "Oh, but there's 40% return rate on Android." I don't buy that. That's just
40%. Come on.
Nobody would sell them if they were getting half of them back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Well, look, okay, 40%, then they're selling exactly as many as Apple sells. So okay, let's take that figure.
A goodly number.
Would anyone call Apple's sales of iPhones and iPads anything other than incredible?
Right.
No. So what's the problem here? You know, this isn't a company that only exists to own a patent that may or may not be valid, and we're going to sue other companies if they don't license that technology. You know, that's not what this is. Mm-hmm. I find
though, one thing to bring up here is the DOJ is looking into the Nortel patent purchase now. So rhetoric aside, it seems to have worked, and supposedly they're looking into it and deciding if they are colluding to the detriment of Android.
Well, but I would also say looking into it doesn't mean that's due diligence. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, Paul, you think
it's due diligence after they bought the deal already finalized and closed last Friday.
Yeah, by the way, who spent more on Washington lobbyists in the past year? Google, Microsoft, or Apple?
Probably Google, right?
Google.
Yeah.
So that's why that's happening.
Well, and they got Eric Schmidt, their former CEO, is in Washington. So let me ask this though: you think that that Google is doing with Android essentially what IE did? I mean, Microsoft did with IE.
Absolutely.
They're giving it away for free in order to corral the market.
Of course.
And then what's the end game for that? They're not going to charge for it. They're just going to continue to give it away.
No, the end game is more audience for their search products.
That's what they make money doing. So they don't care. Right. They just want to.
Well, but isn't this exactly what Microsoft was doing? In other words, it looks like the world is going to the web. Let's put a web browser in Windows. And then everyone complained, and what came out of that? A Microsoft antitrust lawsuit.
Which is too bad, because it's just good business, if you ask me.
Okay, but I mean, my point is simply that these things are comparable.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yep.
I think you're right. Although I'm not sure that it's nefarious.
I'm not saying it's nefarious. I mean, this is a tough issue because just knowing from my experience with the Microsoft antitrust trial, that kind of behavior when you don't have a monopoly, when you're not dominant in that market, is not illegal. Right. It's not illegal.
Right.
Monopolies are not illegal either. But, when Google, basically what Google is doing is dominating a market somewhat artificially. You know, if they didn't have this unlimited bucket of cash,
Right.
would they be giving away Android, and would they be able to dominate this market
Right.
so quickly the way that they have?
Good point.
And you know, we all know how well Apple's doing, not to beat that to death, but in a market in which Apple is just the shining light in our industry, and they're beating Apple. Really? I mean, doesn't it sound a little suspicious, a little off? A little bit.
Well, I'm an Android phone user. I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. I actually I'm one of the few people apparently. You know, it's so funny because if you listen to the trade press, everybody's Android's so ugly and unusable. Yeah. But some, at least 500,000 people a day, seem to disagree. I like it.
Well, I think the Android versus iPhone thing is exactly like the Windows versus Mac.
It's very
thing.
similar, isn't it? Yeah.
The parallels there are so obvious, it's almost not even worth discussing.
Yeah. It's so obvious, forget it. You know what's not obvious is how dumb IE users are. This is just bizarre.
Sir, I will never tire of your segues.
What is this? A company called AptiQuant.
Yep.
Which I suppose is kind of
it's got to be
newspeak for aptitude quantifiers or something like that. We quantify aptitude.
It's the company that was the bad company in one of those Michael Crichton books.
Yeah, exactly.
We are playing with the DNA of dinosaurs and nanobots.
AptiQuant, bringing you the best of cholera.
The future of nanobot dinosaurs today.
At AptiQuant. At AptiQuant Corporation, we care about you, the user. They're a psychometric consulting company.
Sure they are.
Set up late in July 2011 by the website @cheap.com.
Right.
In order LemmingsAreUs.com.
But
set up by the company not Google.com.
But now this is at aptiquant.com.
Yep.
In order to launch a fake study called Intelligent Quotient and Browser Usage, the study claimed that people using Internet Explorer have a below-than-average IQ score, which on the face of it is moronic.
Well, except for one thing.
Everybody bought it.
This betrays a wonderful bias in the general populace, and also, by the way, in the press, where it sort of verifies something that most people don't have a problem with, and so they go, yeah, okay, sure, that makes sense. You know, into tech people in particular, who tend to think about these things more closely and make different picks when it comes to browsers and whatnot. They would look at this and say, yeah, well, yeah, I chose Chrome. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, only people who are forced to use IE at work would ever use IE. You know, this kind of thinking is dangerous. And I when this thing first came out, I wrote a little blog post about it where I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I mean, whatever this company is, whatever it is they say they do, they must have look. You can download the report; it must be real. I mean, it just sounded
it's printed. I have it here.
It's in PDF format and everything. You have to pay for that.
It must.
You know,
and in fact, the guy
crazy.
who did it says it's a hoax.
Yeah.
And in fact, he says, here's telltale signs that should have uncovered the hoax. This is the guy who did it.
Oh, not that it's crazy.
In less than 5 minutes. The domain was registered July 14th. The test that was mentioned in the report, the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, is a copyrighted test, can't be administered online. The phone number listed on the report in the press release is the same listed on the press releases of my other websites. The address listed on the report does not exist. I copy and pasted most of the material from a site called centraltest.com, and I got too lazy even to change the pictures. The website is made in WordPress. Come on now. Well, this is the guy. This is, by the way, the guy who did it.
As a reporter and as a blogger, I look at this thing and I think this is just not an intelligence test for the press so much as it is a laziness test. Yeah. You know, and that you see a lot of people would just report about something like this and never even question it.
Well, I might have done that.
And did.
I would have done that because it's juicy. It's like a great, it's not believable, but it's a great headline.
Right. Plus, you know, I didn't report on it either because I thought it seemed really nutty. I didn't look into it, though. And, you know, I don't know about
I didn't
Paul,
either.
but I get so many surveys sent to me all the time by companies I've never heard of.
Sure.
And you just assume they're real.
Sure, but I like you.
No, I listen. They could have done a study, you know, like a study, whatever. Right. I mean, you can prove anything with a study.
Exactly.
I think the interesting thing about, first of all, it's lazy and ludicrous, but it's also, it's just pandering to a certain crowd. You know, this is like Mac users, in general, are smarter than PC users, and people read that they go, yeah, of course they are. That makes sense. You know, and
It's just
actually
stupid.
maybe
It
that
doesn't
time
add-
it did make sense.
It doesn't
you know,
add
but
to the conversation. It came out before TWiT. I saw the story and I said, I'm not going to do that. I generally don't do survey stories anyway because they're all loaded.
yeah. What I wanted actually, you know, before it was obvious that this was a complete hoax. What I was hoping to see, what I thought would have been kind of interesting, was a Microsoft response. But you know, as the days went on, it was like, you know, they're not addressing this. Right. You know, that's interesting. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it was so ludicrous. You know, TNT busted it as a hoax right away, I believe. So, you know, on our news show, Tom Merritt and company knew immediately, I think, that it was a hoax. So if you just looked a little deeper.
But if you look, I mean, CNN fell for this.
Oh, of course it did.
Forbes,
It's a great headline.
BBC,
It's a great headline.
but that's amazing.
Study
I mean,
says IE users are dumber than others.
Sure.
You know,
They
I'm
didn't actually word it that way, by the way. But yes.
How was it? What was the headline?
No, they in general have lower IQs, was the way they
In
said it.
general, have lower IQ. It's just such a. It's great. I
know
love it.
it's beautiful.
CNN reporters in general have lower IQs.
Yeah, my blog post about this started off with something like, "Look, I'm not saying this is true or untrue, but I just want to mention I use Chrome. I just throwing that one out there, and you know, and then we'll go on from there."
Well, here I am using IE9 like a moron. It's a great story. It's a funny story. I'm glad we brought it up, and I think we dodged a bullet on that on all of our shows. I hope we did anyway. Some more on Windows 8 and Office 15. What is MinWin?
MinWin. That's the $64,000 question. What is MinWin?
What is MinWin?
So MinWin is, the best I can describe it, kind of the guts of Windows. Some people call it Cutler's NT. It's like Windows if you could decrapify Windows. It would be like Windows at its essence.
Oh, the basic.
The basic, like almost like the kernel, but not exactly. It's kernel, drivers, and a few other things combined. And so what's interesting about this is people who've been hacking the Windows 8 builds, they found that there are something like 5,000 or 6,000 references to MinWin in Windows 8 Milestone 2 build. So that means there's going to be quite a bit of MinWin in the product. And everybody's trying to say, so what does that mean? You know, what can we infer from that? Is that a big deal? And a lot of people are saying it means a lot in terms of virtualization and how Microsoft's going to support legacy apps and enable legacy apps to run on different processors with Windows 8 running. So it could be very significant. But again, we're supposed to wait till build to find out all.
It's all will be revealed at build.
Yes.
Yeah.
All will be revealed, supposedly.
That's what build is for. We now know what build's all about, to reveal
Right.
all.
I don't know what we're going to do after build, because once we know everything, it's going to get really boring quick.
No, it won't. There's plenty to know more. That's what Raphael's for.
That's true.
And Office 15.
Yeah. So
This is
related.
intriguing.
It is. It is. So Office 15, which we know even less about than we know about Windows
Well,
8.
they just came out with Office, so it's a year off?
Yeah.
How far before Office 15?
Late 2012, early 2013, maybe, we're guessing. But anyways, you know how Microsoft's already told us you're going to be able to develop using HTML5 and JavaScript for Windows 8. But it turns out, I found a few job postings on the Microsoft site, and it turns out they're also going to make HTML5 and JavaScript the way you build Office 15 extensions. So remember when you used to have VBA and
Yes,
Visto,
right,
all those
right.
things. So this is where
And they
they're
took
going
that out
with it.
because it was
Right.
harmful, potentially harmful, like
Well,
viruses.
then they added
or?
it back in, didn't they, to Office 2011?
the old VBA was had some security vulnerabilities that they just weren't going to fix because that technology was so out of date.
Because I loved VBA. I really thought that was really cool.
Sure.
I like programmable stuff. I like it where you can program stuff. So, once again, learn JavaScript, kiddies. It's the language of the future, really. I mean, it's in everything now.
I mean, we could only speculate now about what this stuff all means. I wonder sometimes if there isn't going to be some kind of pseudo compilation of JavaScript code that will occur that will make it sort of like a native application, or sort of like a .NET application is today. You know, something you might write in Silverlight or WPF or whatever. But yeah, we don't know.
Right. We don't know, and I don't know if we will find out more about that at Build, actually, because we don't know if they're going to talk about Office 15 at Build or not, since we don't have an agenda.
We don't know.
Why can't then be now?
The clock is ticking.
Why no agenda? They're still working on it. They don't know what the agenda is going to be. Also,
Oh, they know the agenda.
also
They know.
revealing the agenda, though, would also reveal information about
absolutely
8.
Right.
So they don't want to.
Yeah, for example, right, if the class said something like App X 101,
Right.
Implementing Silverlight in Windows 8, I guess
Yeah.
we'd have our answer on that one,
Right.
wouldn't we?
So we'll know in September. All will become clear.
Yep.
I like it that the Build webpage has the little tiles from Windows Phone.
Yeah.
That's the new Microsoft look. Everything's going to be like that.
Yep.
We'll talk about Windows Phone in just a second, but before we do, I want to take you to newegg.com/trade, a great relationship between two of our favorite companies. Of course, I always buy everything at Newegg. I love newegg.com. But sometimes, in fact, we're rolling in old stuff from the old cottage. If you go downstairs now, we actually have interns untangling cables, trying to figure out what the heck we got. Old switches, old routers, old computers. This is why before I go to buy anything at Newegg next time, I'm going to go to newegg.com/trade and use Gazelle to sell or recycle that used stuff so we could pay for the new stuff. I bet you I have thousands of dollars worth of old phones, GPSs, computers, touchpads, PDAs, gaming consoles, digital cameras. All you got to do is go here and then trade them in. They will give you a bid, a price. So let's say, you know what? I just found my old Fujifilm camera. It was a fine Pix. Let me see if I could find it. You see, they have everything here. This is so great. Yeah, it was the F20. There it is. So now I can. This is the process you'll go through. Is it able to take pictures? Yeah. It's in good condition. Not great. I have the battery and the AC adapter. I do not have the original software cables. So how much are they going to give me for this? Probably not a lot. Darn, this item has no cash value.
Wow.
It's pretty old. So here's the deal. They recycle this responsibly. So I'm going to throw that in the box, even though I won't get any money for it, along with other things I will get money for. They pay the postage. If there's data on this stuff, they wipe all items clean of personal data as part of the inspection. The shipping is free. And then they'll either give you money or they will recycle it responsibly. And when I say responsibly, nothing goes into landfill, nothing goes overseas. It all automatically gets recycled with EPA green certified recyclers. So you kind of know you're doing something good. And then at the end, you get a Newegg gift card. So you take that money and you can buy a lot of Newegg stuff. Newegg is I think probably the #1 online retailer. 84,000 products. And the reviews on Newegg, I don't know if you've used Newegg before. In fact, if you haven't, you might want to take a look at it. The reviews are great. So before I buy, I always look at the Newegg reviews of that stuff. 1.9+ million customer reviews. They've got high-res photo galleries. This is when we buy we're actually going to buy more hard drives, right, for the TriCaster. When we do that, we go to Newegg first. We look at the reviews. I was buying the greens. And I think now we're going to, what is it, John, we want to buy? We want to buy the Hitachis instead. They're a little more expensive. But we read it's all from the reviews and then the pictures and so forth. This is just the greatest. I love it. Newegg.com/trade. Take it from a geek. That's actually their slogan, which I love. Take it from a geek. Newegg.com, and time for back to school and time to get rid of your old stuff. Newegg.com/trade. I'm just a big fan of both Gazelle and Newegg, and I'm glad they've teamed up to get yourself a Newegg gift card. By the way, I think, is that right? Yeah, Newegg.com/trade. That's the website. Moving right along, let's talk about Windows Phone 7.5. Believe it or not. And it's got a logo, a square logo.
Square.
That's how we know it's 7.5. Is this that's Mango, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I
guess the square is meant to resemble the tiles, right? Because the tiles are square.
You see them everywhere now. It's all
I thought
tile.
I thought the circle was kind of pretty, but I guess
I haven't been paying attention. So it used to be a circle, and now it's a square.
So that's the big news story this week, I think.
Now you or somebody's done some calculations about sales.
Yeah. So this started with Nick Eaton over at the Seattle PI, and he looked at a filing that Microsoft had with the SEC, compared the numbers there with the numbers Microsoft had in their earnings thing. And what he said was basically that the part of Microsoft that makes Windows Phone, if you subtract out the Xbox, which is also part of that same division, entertainment and devices, the most that Microsoft could have made in the previous fiscal year on Windows Phone was $615 million. But that thing also includes such products as Zune and all the hardware they make, the mice and keyboards, and I think some other things. And of course, for 3 of those months they weren't selling Windows Phone, and so my sort of rough estimate would be probably closer to somewhere around $300 million in revenues.
From Windows Phone 7.
From Windows Phone 7, which
not including 6. I guess they could still be making money on that, couldn't they? 6.5.
Yeah, they're still selling a lot of Windows Mobile, actually.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Yeah.
Right.
So all Windows Phones, not just 7.
Yeah.
I guess the point here is that it's not great yet, regardless of what the actual number is. Even if it was 615 or whatever the number he came up with was, it's not a lot of money, not in the scope of things.
Although, isn't Gartner one of the analysts that said, in 2015, because of Nokia, Windows Phones?
Well, those things are going to be revised. And Gartner and IDC both came out and said the same thing, that by, a certain point in time, Windows Phone would be number 2 in the market after Android. I suspect as these quarters go by that's going to be revised downwards.
Right.
But again, we've talked about this a lot. Microsoft does not have to be number 1 or number 2 to be successful. And somebody pointed out to me, actually just this week, that when Apple came out with the iPhone, if you recall, their first year goal was to secure 1% of the market, and with the iPhone. And they said that amount of market share represented some big amount of money. And I said this jokingly, but with Windows Phone does have 1% of the market, so you can figure out how much money they're making there, I guess. But honestly, for Windows Phone to be successful, they only have to be in the top 3, right? They need to beat RIM and they need to beat WebOS. But I think at that point they've established themselves. I think the top 3, that's where the money's going to be, and that as long as they're in there somewhere, I think that will be fine. And I think that's certainly achievable. I don't know about number 2, but I see number 3 definitely is achievable.
Do they stay in the software business? Do they ever do a Microsoft hardware phone themselves?
Right. That to me was a bigger point of this whole comparative analysis that was done. That's 30 million or 60 million, whatever you want to call it, 300 million, 600 million. That's only money that Microsoft gets from licensing the OS.
Right.
It's not from phones. So, when people are comparing it, well, look how much Apple makes selling the iPhone. Well, Microsoft doesn't sell a phone.
Okay, well, that's not fair. But
you know what? I'm sorry, but
they get a chunk of change though from the manufacturers, or no?
Absolutely,
they just get license fees.
They do.
They get license fees, but still.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
She's right, and that's absolutely relevant. But I still think in the same way that Apple guys will say, well, this Android comparison isn't fair for the iPhone because Android's made by 73 different companies, and we only make one iPhone, and
it's still market share. It's still about market.
No, it's still, yes, it's true. But that was the decision that Apple made when they decided to enter this market. That's how they were going to do it. They're not going to license it to other hardware makers. That's their decision. They made it. It's fine. In the same way Microsoft made this decision that, we're going to make money with software licensing. That's how we're going to do it. Multiple people will build these things, sell them through multiple hardware vendors, through wireless carriers. And that's how they decided to enter the market.
Perhaps because of their bitter experience with the Zune?
No, I think because of their good experience with the PC. That model works very well and still works very well for them. So, the Windows division at Microsoft generates unbelievable revenues, even when they're sort of flat year over year as they were in the most recent quarter. So, if Windows Phone is successful, they're still going to make a lot of money with it.
Right.
So I understand
there's estimates that they. Sorry, Paul. There's estimates that they make about $5 per phone for the operating system by itself.
On Windows Phone, yeah.
On Windows Phone.
And they make 15. Don't they make $15 on an iPhone on each iPhone sold? I think.
I was going to say, how much does Microsoft make per Android device?
Is it Android or iPhone? There's one of them they get license fees for, right?
It's Android,
Yeah, they get
and it's not
patent
everyone.
royalties,
Right.
A patent royalty license.
I think it's like 15 bucks a phone. They're making more
From
money.
certain, not from every manufacturer yet. But
okay.
And we don't know that $15. That number was somebody's estimate about how much Microsoft was asking HTC or Samsung for.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
yeah.
But even if it's 5%, it would be funny if they made the same amount per device
Or more.
on a device that was outselling it by 25 to 1 or whatever the ratio works out to be. I mean, it's still.
Hey, it worked for IBM for years. They didn't make anything. They just licensed everything.
Sure.
And that's been a very good business.
Different ways of doing business, and I agree that it's an apples to orange comparison in some ways. But on the other hand, these companies made their decisions about how they were going to go to market with these products, and they still do compete against each other. So I agree that it's not fair to say Apple made this amount, Microsoft made this amount. But Apple sold X number of iPhones. Certainly that could be compared to how many Windows phones have been sold. If only the number was big enough to calculate.
I'm looking at a Fandroid.com article saying Android's still making Microsoft more money than Windows Phone 7. Sure. But again, all of these are guesses because Microsoft they don't say anything on their 10K.
But you see what that kind of statement is, right? That's this kind of statement like Mac users are smarter than PC users, or I users are dumb. It's that kind of thing. Like this is what as an Android fan, as the site says, this is the type of thing that would make you feel good about
This is a calculation though from Horace DDU that Microsoft had earned $150 million in Q1 on Android, 5 times what they earned on Windows Phone 7.
In what? In a quarter?
In 1 quarter. And then when the numbers in the second quarter, Android earned them $60 million. That's 3 times what Windows Phone brought in on the second quarter. But this is all, again, this is guessing.
I would say, so I guess the question I would have is regardless of what the numbers and figures are, if Microsoft realizes revenues from Android licensing, where does that factor into their bottom line? And in what division gets that money?
Right.
Right. Does this get applied to Windows Phone?
Well, so who gets it?
I actually asked. I was told on background that it is the Windows Phone division that gets it.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, that's where those revenues supposedly show up.
So Microsoft is in some ways subsidizing the development of Windows Phone with Android.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like circle of life over here.
It's so enmeshed. Everything's so enmeshed, and that's what these patent lawsuits show you. Is it's all enmeshed. I wonder how it would have been had we not had software patents.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of the good old days, Microsoft's MS-DOS. How old do you think it is, kids? 30 years old this week.
Well, except for one thing,
Same age as MTV.
Well, we don't really use MS-DOS, right?
No.
I realize there's an MS-DOS-like command line in Windows.
But it's not the same.
It's not. No, it's not an operating system. I mean, somebody will probably be chiming in.
You know who uses MS-DOS? Actually, it's not MS-DOS. It's a clone.
Like
Steve
DR
Gibson.
DOS?
No, Steve Gibson uses it when you install SpinRite because you have to put it on a boot disk. He's got, I can't remember what it is, real
It's
DOS.
got to be
or something.
DR DOS. DR DOS?
No, it's not
Or the
DR DOS.
FreeDOS?
FreeDOS, probably. Yeah, it's FreeDOS, something like that.
The thing Dell computer puts on your machine if you don't want to pay for an OS?
Really? Is that what they do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you have an operating system. It's just C://
Of course you do.
/.
It's not even Linux, though. It's like some kind of free version of DOS.
It's this big.
Exactly. It's actually it's smaller than the BIOS.
Maybe I'm old, but I kind of miss MS-DOS. I learned, we all spent a lot of time, I'm sure you did too, Paul, learning those obscure arcane batch commands and stuff.
Actually, so my first experience with a PC was my wife had one, and she was a WordPerfect user from work. I was an Amiga guy. She came into my my office or whatever at the home we had, and she said, "I can't get WordPerfect to run. Could you look at this thing?" And so I don't really use PCs at the time, and I sat down in front of it, and you type WP, and it doesn't run. And I said, "Did you navigate to the to the folder in which WordPerfect is located?" And she says, "I have no idea what you're talking about."
CD
/ WP, and you go in and you run in WP, and it runs. And I said, "So I don't understand what the problem is." And she said, "Oh, I've never done that before. It just always worked." And I looked at her, you had that sort of dawning realization. She has no idea how this thing works at all. And so I picked up a booklet about how to write those batch files.
Right.
And I wrote a front end, so when her computer booted, it gave her a menu with all of the applications. And she could, type a number or whatever. And Yeah. So that was my first.
I've written many a
First
DOS menu system.
Sure.
Many of them.
Sure.
So in a way, I'm nostalgic. 30 years. MTV's 30 years old. And I don't know, is this you or is Mary Jo throw this in? This electric is 50 years old.
I did.
I'm
Mary
so
Jo, what's a Selectric?
I'm so tempted to buy an IBM Selectric for. It's still the best way to address an envelope. Period.
It is.
I bet you have one in there
You
somewhere.
know that. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the very first paid article I wrote in my career, I wrote on an IBM Selectric.
There you go.
So I'm really dating myself. But, yeah.
It just
There's
felt
something to be said
good.
for a type.
What was your
Yeah.
favorite ball? Did you like the italic ball?
Jeez.
No, didn't like that. I loved
It's like an
whiteout.
Olivetti
Whiteout
printer.
was-
You know, they used to.
Yeah, if you wanted to do italic, you had to take off the ball, put on the italic ball, type italic,
Type the letter.
take it off, and then put it on the other.
Did.
Ball.
Yep.
But it made such a nice boom, 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 solid sound when you typed on that thing. I love.
I am old enough that when I was in high school, we took a typing class, and it was
There
on
you go.
typewriters.
It was probably
and
on
the people
Selectrics.
who lost out would go in the room with the manual typewriters, and if you were lucky, you went in the room with the electric typewriters. And I got stuck with the manual typewriter, which I hated.
Oh, Ultra Aqua in the chat room's reminding me of the orator ball. You could type speeches, with big letters with the orator ball. On the. Ooh. Wow.
Why
Yeah.
did we ever give this up?
It was so good in those days. So
There's no
good.
one- the paperless office stuff came out of that. You
Right.
know, that was just wishful thinking on the part of people who use typewriters. We have to get rid of paper. Getting rid of paper would solve all our problems.
I kind of wish I had one. I've been very tempted to buy some manual typewriters for the studio. We
Well, why
have
don't you
this-
buy? So you could buy those keyboards that are like the original IBM PC keyboards.
They're too
that have
noisy,
those-
actually. I can't use them. The buckling keyboards, yeah.
Yeah. Some people swear by those.
Oh yeah. Oh, a lot of people do. I actually like them. You could, Northgate. Remember the Northgate Omni
it's
key?
like a teletype. When the
Yeah.
news is coming in over the stock meter.
Yeah.
In from Japan.
Ooh, Truckee has a Hermes portable typewriter. I had one of those too. That was the top of the line portable. And all because you mentioned MS-DOS.
This week on This Old Tech,
This old tech.
we travel out to a barn in Vermont
God, I'm
where
getting
we
so
discover
old.
one of the original Sinclair computers.
Yes. I built it myself.
Right, out of vacuum tubes.
And a vacuum tubes.
And hay.
Ultrabooks. Let's talk about those. I still am not on the. I'm not won over by this Ultrabook.
No,
notion.
I'm going to sell you on it right now because
you-
I discovered something that makes this very interesting.
Okay.
Intel announces this Ultrabook thing, and what it sounds like
It sounds like a
is-
MacBook Air
Okay, exactly right.
running Windows.
So, right. And the notion being, well, netbooks are starting to slow down.
Right.
So why don't we sell a new kind of computer? We'll give it a name, and
It's
instead
just
of
a more
costing
expensive
$300
netbook.
right. Instead of costing $300, it will cost under $1,000. So we could make more money per PC. So it sounds like kind of a land grab of sorts.
Right.
Like people love these MacBook Airs. Let's
Right.
make a PC that looks just like that. Except that's not actually what this thing is, and that's what I just found out. What it is What it is Intel is putting the guts of the computer not under the keyboard where they are now, but behind the screen. So that with an Ultrabook, that screen will be detachable and will be like an iPad. But then when you attach it to the keyboard, which is now dumb instead of the screen being dumb, you will have a full-fledged laptop. And these things will be very, very thin. Even, in fact, up to 1/3 as thin as a MacBook Air is today.
They're not going to be tippy, though, aren't they? If they have all the stuff in the lid, it's going to fall over all the time.
Sure. The battery will still. Well, actually, I guess there would be some battery that would have to be in the top too. But I assume maybe they could put a battery in the bottom. I don't have.
No,
all the
they just
details.
put counterweights.
But what does this sound like? This sounds like the first. Well, the first generation Ultrabooks will come out this year.
It sounds like that thing we saw at CES a year and a half ago.
Well, but what it sounds like to me is the exact kind of computer that Microsoft wants for Windows 8.
Ooh.
It sounds like a Windows 8
A
computer.
hybrid. It's a
A
hybrid.
hybrid with a touch screen
Yeah.
that it is essentially an iPad,
Yeah.
but then you plug it into a keyboard, and now it's not just an iPad with a keyboard, it's actually a Windows computer. It's a full-fledged Windows computer. And when you think about it like that, and you think about the awesomeness of a really thin iPad-like computer with a keyboard, It actually isn't that dumb. It actually starts to get a little bit exciting. I mean, you could picture something like this.
It's a new kind of convertible, but it's going to run Intel, and I think this is Intel's point, not ARM.
Yes, still backwards compatible with all of your stuff.
Right.
And there's no reason ARM PC makers couldn't come up with something similar, but I think there's going to be a decided advantage for PC users who have some kind of library of software that they still want to run and will want that backwards compatibility. And of course, the Intel-based stuff or the x86 or x64-based stuff will give you that. So it's actually not as kind of bald-facedly silly as it sounds in the beginning. I think actually the Ultrabook starts to make some sense.
Why, that's bald-facedly silly. Was that your reaction? Bring back DOS 5.
I speak like I rightly.
You do. I can always hear your voice when I read the SuperSite for Windows, which is what I kind of like. They do say that they're going to actually, you know, it's funny because right after build is Intel's IDF, the developers forum.
Right, and you have to think it's going to be a lot of Windows 8 stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Ultrabook stuff. They're saying that's when they're going to show the
Windows 8 Ultrabooks. Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Not a coincidence, I don't think.
Yeah, Asus Tech, Hewlett Packard, and Lenovo will all show. Interesting. And it says, and this article from the Digitimes, the estimable Digitimes, says that it's going to have a new CPU structure.
Right.
Successor to Ivy Bridge. Or maybe it is Ivy Bridge. I don't know.
Well, the first version will be like ultra low voltage Sandy Bridge stuff that will come out this year. And then next year, they're already talking roadmap, which is really interesting. Next year will be the Ivy Bridge stuff.
Okay. And
then they're looking down the line from that. But, you know, obviously the goal here is thinner, 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 thinner. You know,
Ivy Bridge is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of even like it's a bigger jump than Sandy Bridge.
I'll give you some insight into my email, which I know is a lot like yours. That now that we have discussed this, I could go look at my inbox and I will already have my first email, which will say, "So should I wait for an Ultrabook before buying my next computer?"
No,
like,
but
that's coming.
It may well be that if you buy a Windows 8 computer, that's. But now they're still going to do trucks in Steve Jobs' words.
Absolutely, of course. It's still a PC world. You know, there are all different PCs, but. This is that new kind of PC.
I always was a big fan of the or at least in theory, a big fan of the convertible. That would, in fact, I still have one on my desk that would flip around, it turn into a tablet, then flip around and be a laptop. You get the best of both worlds.
It's you know, there's a scene in the Indiana Jones movie where he's running through the crowd and the guy comes out with a knife and he says, "Oh, screw it," and he just shoots him, right?
Yes, I love that scene.
Well, the convertible PC is sort of like that, where it's like, look, I can flip this thing around when I need to and draw what the guy put up on the whiteboard. To which I say, I just pull up my camera and take a picture and say, "Yeah, that's nice. I can do it too." You know, like there really just isn't that many times where I wanted to write on a screen.
No,
you know,
I know.
That's the way. So the theory makes sense, but in reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Not so much. And then the other problem, of course, was those first gen ones had, you know, Pentium M processors, horrible battery life, really bad performance, and combined with a premium price. It was sort of the perfect storm.
But in my opinion, the big flaw was you had an operating system that wasn't designed for the ground up to be touch, and that's the potential shift because Windows 8 will be.
Well, back then, of course, we were talking. It wasn't about touch at all. It was about handwriting recognition.
Right.
You know, that was
you would use OneNote and you'd have to use a stylus.
Even early on, I thought, you know, the hokey part of this is some people will like it. It's certainly a more personal computing experience. You can sit there with your leg crossed and write, you know, handwrite on the screen. My problem is I can't even write a check without my hand cramping up, you know. So I type very quickly. I couldn't write in a meeting with my hand to save my life. I would never be able to keep up. So for some people, maybe that's okay, but I think the world's moving on. I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast. I think I might have mentioned recently that my kids are not being taught cursive writing in school.
Thank God.
Well, except for one thing. No, okay.
What happens when they have to write a letter?
No, what happens when they have to read cursive writing? As it turns out, for my children, cursive handwriting that's written on a piece of paper or wherever written by someone else looks like Egyptian hieroglyphics to these people.
That's interesting.
So you do sort of lose something. But then again, you know, as this is happening, here's Microsoft, you know, working to put full-fledged, you know, handwriting and, you know, analysis and recognition into a computer right in the same day and age where we're getting rid of handwriting. That's sort of a Monday morning quarterback thing to say, but, you know, it is an excellent technical achievement. I just don't think it was a a thing that people really wanted.
How important is it that that price point be under 1,000? Because PC World's reporting that this Acer might be over 1,000.
I think there are going to be prices all over the map for these things. I think there always will be for computers. But PCs, the PCs that look and act like MacBook Airs are going to have to be less than $1,000 because MacBook Airs start at $1,000.
They're at 1,000. Yeah.
You can't have one for the same price.
Right.
Well, I mean, you can, but you have to also have the ones that are cheaper.
They're going to make. HP is going to make sub 1,000 ones. Dell and Lenovo will. Acer wants to pick up that kind of premium, that Apple-style premium audience that wants aluminum and all of that stuff.
Oh, everyone wants that audience, but
right.
That audience has already spoken for us. So
yeah, I think you're right. Adobe Edge. Is this the? What is this? What is Adobe Edge? Is that yours, Mary Jo?
No, that one's not mine. That's Paul's.
I almost want to skip over this one.
Okay.
I don't even care.
XP's I don't know XP's share is now below 50%. Well.
Leo, would it help you for us to put our names next to these?
Yeah, next time I want to know, because then I can say, and Mary Jo says XP's share is below.
We've been collaborating on SkyDrive.
I know.
Is that how you're doing it?
That's how we're doing it.
Not Office 365?
Microsoft Technologies.
Not Google Docs, huh?
Well, we're using Word Web App, aren't we?
Oh, okay. So you are using Office 3. So XP's
it's on SkyDrive, but it's Word Web App on SkyDrive.
Got it. And Word Web App is not Office 365.
In fact, I was thinking before this show, instead of I email this to you, I could just share this document.
Would you do
with
that for me,
Eileen, and then you could just access it right on the web.
And then I could change it.
No, you would be in a read-only mode.
Windows users are dumb.
Right. Thank you for using the pirate font, by the way.
Everything's Comic Sans.
Yeah.
XP share is below 50%. Windows 7, I'm surprised, 28%. Doesn't that seem? I guess that shouldn't seem low, but it's been out for a while. It's sold hundreds of millions of copies. Only 28% of all Windows users, according to Net Applications. And they measure this, Mary Jo, by virtue of they're looking at the web access, right?
Right. Usage, right.
Usage.
It's a usage there.
Yeah. So
I mean, part of what we're seeing, I think, is that a lot of businesses are still in the middle of their Windows 7 rollouts. We're just still hearing now about those really big rollouts, 200,000, 300,000 PCs being rolled out. So, yes, there's been really strong consumer adoption. 400 million copies of Windows 7. But on the business side, it's been slower, and those are the guys who are stuck in large part on XP and IE6.
Right.
Yep.
Stuck.
So it's good.
Or
good news.
Excited to be there.
I love IE6.
Yeah. Some of them are stuck. Some of them can't migrate because their IT departments are holding them there because of the applications they've built, right? So they can't upgrade them.
Yep.
The particular issue being probably ActiveX, things like that, right?
Sure.
Right, and that they built custom apps using IE6, which is not upgradable easily to the higher level IE versions.
By the way, I just want to remind everybody I am using genuine Microsoft software and encourage everyone.
What made you say that, Leo? I'm curious.
It just popped up on the screen.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because it doesn't usually pop up if you are using Microsoft.
I'd like to learn. I want to learn more online about the benefits of genuine Windows. Does anybody ever click that link? Let's learn some more about why piracy is bad and genuine is good. Protection, reliability, and performance. Did you know that genuine Windows 7 performs faster?
Right.
It's more secure and more reliable.
I'm not sure how true that is.
I don't think it's true at all, but okay. Let us move along to another topic. It would be helpful if you'd number these as well, because then I could just say number 12. All right, so you went to? Was it last week you went to Atlanta?
It was this week.
It's this week. You're just back.
Yep, I just came back.
How was that?
It was awesome.
Big Nerd Ranch, which has the best name ever.
It was, yes.
Aaron Hilligas. They all wear cowboy hats. Did you get a cowboy hat when you go?
No, but I got a T-shirt.
Oh. I think you should have worn
it. It has a cowboy hat on it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. So how was it?
No, it's they do intense week-long and shorter and longer classes as well. Not just for iOS, but also for the Mac, for various web programming technologies, and for Android, by the way, as well. And I'm going to write up something very lengthy about this. But the class was great. The instructor was great. There was a lot of nice kind of class camaraderie. We have, or this class was held in a kind of a remote location, which was kind of cool. It was really intense, and it's actually still going on now. I sort of audited the class.
Yeah.
I did it for 2.5 days, and I did, by the way, for whatever it's worth, I did keep up. iOS programming is very, very, very hard, and to my mind, arcane. Although, as I will write about, it was very interesting talking to both Aaron and the instructor separately.
What made it so difficult?
Speaking plainly, or speaking simply, I would say that if you think about object-oriented programming languages like C++ or C# or Java, there are certain niceties that you get by being object-oriented that just are not present in Objective-C. And Objective-C is very much a thin layer on top of plain C. It was written a very long time ago.
Right. For Next.
Yes, and I'm not sure if it was written for Next. I'm not actually sure about that. But
I think it came out of Next.
Yeah, certainly they used it. I'm not sure the exact beginnings of it. But the people, who have used it for a while actually love it. And for me, it was like going back to college C, where you have to think, like, wait a minute, I have to, deal with memory directly and allocating and deallocating memory, and every object you reference is with a pointer, which is very old school. It's very, very difficult. The syntax is different. That's fine. You can overcome that pretty quickly. But a very arcane process. And even in the developer tools are not fantastic either, actually, even though they've been improving.
You don't like Xcode?
If you've ever used Visual Studio, you would scoff at Xcode.
It's not as polished.
They are not in the same league at all. But obviously iOS is so popular that so many developers have latched onto this thing. And sure enough, the people who are in my group were by and large, professional developers who do other things, see the writing on the wall, and either their business sent them, or in some cases, they took a vacation time and paid a lot of money to come to this class to learn it on their own because they see it as beneficial to their careers.
Right.
And this is absolutely a great way to do it. So. Fantastic stuff. I definitely recommend looking up Big Nerd Ranch, and I'll have a long write-up sometime in the next couple of days.
And you're right. Objective-C predates Next. It was created in the early 80s, but Next was the company that
Objective-C,
popularized.
does have the feel of something that is very old. If you're familiar with like K&R-C, the old C, it is of that age. I mean, there's an oldness to it.
Well, it's heavily, it's Smalltalk influenced.
Absolutely. The object-oriented stuff in there is from Smalltalk, which, it tells you something both good and bad, I think, in some ways. But it's old-fashioned. I don't know how else to say it. But obviously, Next and then Apple has done a great job of creating class libraries that sit on top of this thing and now work with multi-touch and all the awesome features of the iPhone. So you can do some incredible things with it.
Well, good. I'm glad you went. That's been kind of a dream of mine to go.
I know. Me too. And I can't, the class is so intense, I can't get anything done when I'm there. And it's all day long. It's like, and people stayed longer, and people there all night. And this place we're at was like the set from one of the Friday the 13th movies. I walked home one night, back to my cabin at 10:30 at night, and I'm thinking some guy with a butcher knife is going to jump up behind a tree. And it was just the weirdest remote location. It was really funny, but
I think it's a good idea. And Aaron's funny because he says in the introduction to his book on Objective-C for the Mac, Cocoa for the Mac, he says coffee is no substitute for sleep. So don't think that...
Oh, yeah, no, he's very serious about that stuff, actually. Yeah, no, he's created something wonderful there. And in an age where everything is virtual, he's very much about the physical presence stuff and actually showing up and doing it. And, the way I would put it is, his book is a certain length. And I got through, I think, 14 chapters of the book.
Wow.
In 2.5 days. Now, if you handed me the book and said, Paul, here's a Mac, go sit at it, and for the next week go through the book, I would never do that much of it in 2.5 days, ever. There's no way, no matter how dedicated I was.
Right.
And it forces you just to do that thing. And I wish that in some ways, my life was a little different and that I could focus more time on this.
Me too. Me too.
Very interesting.
We both wish, Mary Jo, we wish we were programmers, Paul and I, and we were just sitting there toiling away like
simpler world,
like the monks of old in their scriptoria,
their technology monastery.
Yeah, just scribbling away on our IBM Selectrics. You're gonna go to SharePoint on Saturday, MJ.
Yeah, I'm going to be among a different kind of nerds, not wearing cowboy hats, SharePoint nerds.
Ooh.
next week at this big conference in Annandale, Virginia that's called SharePoint Saturday the Conference.
I want to implement SharePoint. I really think it seems like a neat idea. It's essentially where sharing documents, yes?
Yes, it's
And collaborating,
and it's
yeah.
search, and it's a lot of other things, document management.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very, very enthusiastic group of people out there who call themselves SharePinters because they have pints while talking about SharePoint.
I thought this was a
not making
typo.
this up.
I thought they were SharePointers, but
I
no, it
actually
wasn't.
stumbled over that one myself.
It's
but
not
I
a typo.
decided-
It's SharePinters.
Oh, SharePinters.
Wow.
And SharePinters they're like Apple fanboys except all about SharePoint.
Hold on a second. So I would say that you and I are SharePinters, but it has nothing to do with SharePoint.
You
It
just
is
like pints.
It's more of a
Share
drinking thing.
pints. Right.
I don't
yeah,
think there's
if you
enough
like
to share in a pint.
If you like pints and if you like SharePoint, you should come to this conference, which starts on August 11th in Annandale. And I'm going to be speaking there on the first day about Office 365, 10
Fun.
things you need to know.
Have you been to this before?
No, I have never been
Where
to
is
this.
Annandale? Where is this? Is this near D.C.?
Yeah, it's near DC. It's not so far from Falls Church. It's out at the Annandale Community College, I think.
Fun.
And there's going to be 3,000 people there.
Wow.
3,000 SharePinters.
I've got so much travel to do over the next month. I kind of want to go to this.
That's
wonder-
You should go.
I need
Come
to
on,
see the
Paul.
calendar. I know. I think
You can
Annandale.
take the Amtrak with me.
That's right. You take the
No, I'll
Excella.
definitely take the Amtrak. Yeah.
You'll be there in seconds. Well, years.
Well, yes. It's not Japan, Leo.
The
but we'll
Excella
be
is
there
such a disappointment because it can go as fast as a bullet train,
yeah,
but the
so there are a
tracks,
lot of reasons for that.
the tracks in the Northeast are in such bad shape.
So I, having traveled this thing a million times, I just want to defend Amtrak. It's not their fault. They travel on tracks that are largely owned by other people.
Right.
They have to follow their rules. They have to wait for the train. So
It's horrible.
this train has a speed of something like 220 miles an hour, but the fastest it ever really goes is 165. or
I was so
185.
disappointed. I really was.
Yeah, yeah.
Audible has something to tell everybody. We're going to get back to you, Paul, and Mary Jo Foley. Mary Jo Foley's here from allaboutmicrosoft.com, our new regular on the show. I'm so glad to have you, Paul Thurrott. Mary Jo, have we gotten you using Audible books yet?
No, not yet.
All right, we're gonna.
Maybe
Now we
on
have somebody to
Amtrak.
work on. Yeah, maybe more time on Amtrak could do it for you.
Sure.
Our tips and picks coming up in just a second. Mary Jo's Enterprise Pick of the Week, a new feature that you've all been clamoring for.
They have,
Thank you.
believe it or not. You should see all the email I'm getting on this. People want the Enterprise Pick of the Week.
We wanted to do an Enterprise show. It just I couldn't keep my eyes open, and so it's my fault. No, I have. It really is. It's a flaw in my makeup. I'm very consumer focused, end user focused, and I've just never been able to, follow enterprise computing, and so it's a flaw in my makeup. And I think more power to you, Mary Jo.
We're going to win you over with
Do.
things like study that says Hyper-V engineers are more manly than those using other virtualization technologies.
I believe the term in the study was it was Studley, actually.
Studley.
Nice.
So this headline just out from Audible, 85,000 titles now. When we first started doing these ads, what was it? Was 50 or 60,000? They are growing so fast now. Partly because audiobooks have just taken over, but also, I think, partly because Audible themselves record many books now, which is really fantastic. One of the things that happened with the science fiction in particular is that these companies just weren't recording these. People would complain, we want more science fiction audiobooks, so Audible just started this whole thing called Audible Frontiers, and they record these great science fiction books now. I'm a science fiction fan, and it's been just a wonderful boon to me. Go to audible.com and browse around. There's just a ton of books in all different categories. You've got business, classics, fiction, nonfiction, history, mysteries and thrillers, romance, science and technology, sci-fi and fantasy, self-development books for little kids, like Go the F to Sleep, books for...
All right. The previous Windows Weekly pick.
You know
I do
what's...
have 2 picks, by the way.
You
I
get
didn't put
2?
them in this- yeah, I do have 2.
All right, well, fire
I'm
away.
so far behind on Audible. I have a huge list of Audible picks.
Give me a pick.
So I recently, the Star Wars trilogies, the books that were released on the Kindle, which caused me to go get them both and reread them all. The old ones are way better than the new ones, whatever that's worth.
Were these written? Are these aren't written by George Lucas himself, right?
The first one was ghost-written by Alan Dean Foster, who also wrote a different Star Wars book called Splinter of the Mind's Eye, but it was publicized as being written by George Lucas. I think it was based on his what do you call it?
Screenplay, yeah.
Screenplay, thank you.
But he also has the big, large story, too. And I would imagine that really all of this has to fit into that universe, right?
Yeah, so I think the thing that, as a kid reading these books growing up, I was always fascinated by the stuff that was in the books that didn't make the movie. And in the first book in particular, there's a lot of stuff that was in that book that never made it to the screen, didn't make the final cut. And years and years ago, in the early 1980s, they did a NPR radio broadcast of the Star Wars story, starring some of the people from Star Wars.
So good.
And it includes those scenes from the book that aren't in the movie, which is kind of neat from a historical perspective. But it also has some of the original cast. And they're kind of fun. So you can get that through Audible. It's called Star Wars Dramatized. And there are actually versions for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi as well. Mark Hamill is in them and Anthony Daniels. And I think the other ones there's a couple of other people that make appearances in the other ones as well.
It was basically the guys who couldn't get work elsewhere.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it that way. So... yeah, well, you'll notice that Harrison Ford's not in there. But anyway, the point is, they're still cool. They're a lot of fun. I mean,
even the Wookiee was busy doing something else at the time.
They are of that age, so that's neat. The second one, which has nothing to do with the first, is Anthony Bourdain's classic book, Kitchen Confidential.
Oh, love that book.
He's a guy. It's funny because he's a chef, but he has a TV show that's not on Food TV. It's actually on the Travel Network, and he's got his own personality and all that stuff. And I think like anyone else who's getting older, I mean, he's sort of, it's almost more of an act today than it is the real thing. But this is back.
This is the original. Yeah.
This is the real thing. And I would say of his books, not being influenced by the TV show, this is probably the most excellent one of all of them. So nice retrospective of his life as a chef and a lover of food and a traveler and all that stuff.
Two great recommendations. I've listened to Star Wars Dramatized, loved it. I've also listened to Anthony Bourdain. This is those are two great picks. Now here's the deal: you can get one of these for free right now. Audible. I think we're confirming now. Audible.com.
That failed me for the last time.
/Windows and Paul. No. Audible.com/Windows. Here's what you'll do: you'll be going there and you'll be signing up for the Gold account. That's the book a month subscription. And the first month is free. The first book is free, and you can cancel it anytime, so it doesn't have to cost you a penny. And you keep that book forever. So whether it's Kitchen Confidential, Star Wars Dramatized, or anything else, the idea is here's a chance to try Audible and see for yourself. This is interesting. They have now an Audible concierge. Have a question? Chat with your concierge. That's a new feature.
It's the same woman from Dell.
Yes. What company would you like me to represent today? No, I think this is a lot of times people have. Well, can this play? What can this play on? And it'll play on a Kindle. It'll play on an iPod, iPhone, Zune. I mean, anything that you have, it'll play on. In fact, even the Android phones, they have this great. I did jury duty, and I was stuck for a whole day in the jury room yesterday. And thank God for Audible. And when I had my Android phone and I didn't have all my books, so I opened up the Audible app on the Android, and I have my whole list. There's over 500 books, and I picked a book and I was listening to it. It was lifesaver. It will save your life someday. Literally. Audible.com/Windows. Give it a try. I think you're going to like it. Mary Jo, we're going to win you over. Maybe on your way on the Acela down to the SharePoint Saturday, the conference. You could just listen to it.
Maybe I could read a SharePoint handbook or something.
What do you read? Do you read fiction for fun? Do you ever read fiction for fun? What do you read?
Yes, I read a lot of fiction for fun.
Yeah. What kind of books do you like?
Yes. I like historical fiction. I like cyber thrillers. I liked Mark Rusinovich's new book.
Did you like that?
You guys,
Zero Day?
I like that.
Yep.
Zero Day. Yep.
It's supposed to be awesome.
Have you read the Daniel Juarez stuff?
Oh, yeah. You've got to read Demon and Freedom.
I did.
Have to.
Paul got me to read both of those.
Okay.
Yep. Read both those.
Those are cyber thrillers.
Yep.
Yes, I like those.
And Mark's book is not on Audible, unfortunately. We got to get him to record.
Yeah. He would be a good reader for that, too, actually.
Yeah, I think he would.
Yep.
So let's see. You have a Q&A No, I don't think we have time for the Q&A.
We sort of loaded up this thing and thought we might not have time this week, but
you want to start doing that again, where we go to the chat room?
Yeah, we haven't done that in a long time, and we should be.
You know what? We could do 5 minutes. You want to take a couple of questions? Look, we got this great panel here. We got Mary Jo Foley, all about Microsoft.com. We've got Paul Thurrott, author of the Select Labs series, Windows Visual Basic 3.
You gotta make sure I'm not drinking when you do that.
Right out his nose. Right out the nose.
I hurt the back of my throat.
So here we go. Chat room, your turn. And now it's funny because once you start talking about something, they go off on the tangent. So for a long time, they were talking about their favorite typewriters and onion skin paper and stuff. We finally settled that down, and now they're talking about Audible. So I'm going to give them a second or two to catch up. What is the future of public folder in Exchange server versus SharePoint? Dr. X, he must be a SharePinter.
Yes, he must. I think he needs to come to the conference to get the answer.
And when you come back, you can ask there and tell us.
We should warn the panel not to ask us any questions we don't know the answers to.
Please.
Right. Ask us some fun questions.
Why can't I have different color options for Microsoft Office products? Asks D.E. Bluchen.
Right?
That's his name. I'm not making this up.
I'm questioning the question, not the name.
LadyBigMac.com. What Windows phone should I purchase, Paul? These are terrible questions. What's your favorite?
You should wait. Right now, you should wait.
Should you wait?
Yeah, Mango phones are coming out. You're going to want to see what those look like. You're going to want to see the Nokia phones.
I think obviously that new Nokia.
Yep.
Ooh. When will that be out? Did they say?
No, but there's going to be we didn't talk about this, but I believe this month they're going to have their press conference, and I believe that's what they're announcing.
No, it turns out that was a false alarm. No, everybody thought that's what it was going to be, but actually, I'm thinking they're going to announce that phone at Nokia World at the end of October in London, maybe.
That's exciting.
Mary Jo Foley, the killer of dreams.
And here,
I know, sorry.
A moment from the earlier show.
That's great.
This is the pre-show. Paul and I show.
What sells it is I'm leaning in to accept it.
Our manly love for one another. We thank you for the screenshot. We knew they would do that, didn't they?
Sure.
Wow. It's called the decisive moment.
It's a moment.
Our Windows Weekly tip of the week. Who got a Roku 2? Which of you has a Roku 2?
I did. So hey, let me explain how we're going
jealous.
to do this. I previously had a lot of different kinds of software picks. Obviously, Mary Jo Foley's on board now. So I'm going to do a tip and a pick each week, and then she'll have an enterprise pick and a codename pick. So
what's a codename pick?
We'll get to that.
I'll tell you more.
Ooh.
Hold on.
I like it.
To build, Leo.
A codename pick. I like it.
So the tip of the week is if you're looking for a non-Apple living room solution that does all that kind of Apple stuff, the Roku 2 just came out. There are 3 versions of it. I got the high-end version, which basically adds a game platform, which I'm not all that impressed by. But the other stuff is awesome. And instead of just having, I think Apple TV offers obviously the Apple stuff, but also Netflix and a few other services. This one has this unbelievable range of services. The Amazon stuff, Hulu Plus, Netflix, Flickr, Google Picasa Web, it has our stuff is on there. The version of Netflix that's on there supports captioning now or subtitles.
Oh, yay. You must be happy about that. That's great.
Love it. So this is instant inclusion in my living room. So
yeah. We were wondering last week if Paul's son is deaf, so closed captioning is really important.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. Well, that makes Netflix usable for my son, which is amazing. So before Netflix was something that did not exist, and now it's something that he can take advantage of.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Roku 2 is awesome.
It also looks like it's an app, almost like the size of an Apple TV.
It's unbelievable how much it looks like an Apple TV. Yeah, they're very, very similar. Right next to each other, you would have a hard time deciding which one was which.
Interesting.
Yeah. I recommend getting one of the 2 higher end ones, and they're not expensive. The most expensive one is $99. You get things such as HDMI and 1080p output on the 2 high end ones, and I think in today's day and age with HD TVs and so forth, that's what you're going to want.
It really is amazing the variety of stuff there. I'm a big Roku fan. So
yeah.
Now, admittedly, this isn't as capable as Windows Media Center. You can't record things like that.
You know what? Whatever. I really think that this is
just a no-brainer. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And apparently they're going to put Angry Birds.
But yeah. By the way, so Angry Birds works great with the.
Do you
remote.
have it?
I do. Yeah. So it comes free with the high-end one. unfortunately, the remote for the high-end one, they turned into a little bit of a gamepad, and they made one major mistake is the OK button in the other versions and also in the older Rokus was in the middle of that directional pad, which makes a lot of sense. So if you have to sit there in front of the TV and type in a username and password, that makes sense. And having it somewhere else, which it is on this other remote, doesn't make sense. The good news is the old Roku remote works with the new unit. So I happen to have one of those, so I'm actually using the old remote because I don't like the new remote that much. But the device itself is fantastic.
And the high end, the one you got, the XS, does have a USB port, so you could put a hard drive on there.
Yeah, and you know that stuff's okay. I mean, honestly, what's would be better than that? It works. It's slow, and it works with NTFS formatted disk, which is good. But if you have a folder full of lots and lots of movies, like I do, you know, it takes a while.
Slow
like
to
any
navigate.
of those, it's a slow processor, and that thing obviously it works, but
makes sense. Okay, so don't count on that. I like it that it has. I like it that it has an Ethernet port because Wi-Fi sometimes isn't really very. I'm in having. Have you had this problem lately? I have a problem with Netflix, 7 to 10 p.m. prime time. I think everybody in my cul-de-sac is watching Netflix.
Yeah. No, I don't have that problem, but that's.
I'm actually changing internet service providers because of it.
So there was a statistic somewhere that
it's like 40%.
Networks represents 40% of all internet bandwidth.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. So this is obviously putting Netflix or Hulu Plus, if that's what you use, or Amazon, the Amazon stuff, which is great if you have Amazon Prime, which I do. That's free. You know, it's in HD. If the content is in HD, it works great, and it's just a nice way to do it. You know, rather than the complexity of attaching a computer or however else you might get that stuff. It's nice.
And a software pick, which is, and this is a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready.
Well, you know, in the past, so I used to do separate Windows software picks and Windows Phone, and then what I used to call a mobile app pick, which is typically a Microsoft cross-platform kind of thing for other platforms. Given that Skype is basically a Microsoft product, Skype is finally available now for the iPad. And actually, I should say, this was actually Mary Jo Foley's idea. I don't know why I keep using your full name. I apologize for that.
I think it's because of Twitter.
Mary Jo Foley.
I know, it just comes out. It's just
Mary Jo Foley. I've been calling her MJ, which I think
we're splitting the difference.
She doesn't like it. But I could tell there's a little. I'm getting a little vibe from her that's not.
She'll just turn it off.
Is it because of Michael Jackson? Is that why you don't like it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's all about Michael Jackson.
You know, that's weird you say that. When I hear MJ, I actually think of Spider-Man. Does that make me a special kind of...
It means you should have been at Comic-Con last week is what it means.
Yeah. Oh, well. Skype
for the iPad. Actually, we're going to talk about that. iPad Today's coming up a little later this afternoon, and we're going to talk about that and a bunch of new apps for the iPad. But it was weird. It was there, then it wasn't there, then it was there again. It was very strange.
And I guess it is.
It's there now. Yeah. And it works on 3G.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Enterprise Pick of the Week, Mary Jo Foley.
Yes. So I figured since you're letting me do an Enterprise Pick of the Week now,
Yay.
I might as well go really big with the first official one. So my Enterprise Pick of the Week is a thing called Daytona.
Ooh.
And the real name of Daytona is MapReduce for Windows Azure. So what does that mean? It's cloud analytics, and it's for people who are scientists and others who consume big data, basically. And what's interesting about it to me is Microsoft put out a tech preview of it in July from their Extreme Computing group. You can download it, play with it. But instead of using their own competitive technology to MapReduce is a Google technology, they have their own called Dryad, which does the same thing basically. But they did this product based on MapReduce. And people who are interested in analyzing trends in big data, running it across hundreds of servers in their data centers, this is the group this is for. And they can download this now, and Microsoft said they may even open source it, believe it or not, at some point. But it's for academics, people who are into big data analysis.
Big data is actually fascinating. It has real business implications, of course, because who has all that data? Business, primarily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, see, you stayed awake for that, Leo.
No.
You didn't hate it.
I'm feigning interest. No, this looks good. I'm feigning interest.
Nice.
Project Daytona.
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 See, it's pretty cool. Yep. And, yeah, so now you can have a choice. You can use Microsoft Dryad, which is now called Link to HPC. That's the official name. Or you can use MapReduce on your cloud to analyze and do all kinds of analyses with your big data on your multiple servers.
See, and people say, why don't you do an enterprise show? This stuff is fascinating.
So actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mary Jo Foley, is of course the code name Queen, and Daytona. I don't know if you recall, it was a Microsoft code name as well. Do you remember what it was
Yes.
for?
You mean they've used it twice?
Yeah, they have.
Yep.
They use a lot of their code names.
It sounds familiar. It does sound familiar. Was it a Windows code name?
Yes, it was.
NT, right? Was it NT?
Yep.
Wow.
It was. I believe it was NT 3.51.
5.1?
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was.
That's cool, actually. That's really cool.
Daytona.
And now we're going to do a new feature. I'm really excited about this.
Yep.
Yes,
so
the code name pick of the week. So you're the code name queen? I didn't even know that.
I am. That's my next business card title, Codename Queen.
The Queen.
And
that's because you ferret out code names, right? You're good
I
at
do. I love finding out code names because there's always really interesting histories about why Microsoft uses certain code names, and it helps you figure out which products are related to other products. So on my site, all about Microsoft, I create this thing called the Codename Tracker, and I allow people to download it for free, and I update it every month. So I figured, hey, let's talk about a code name every show because there's so many of them, and some of them are brand new code names, some of them are code names from the vault, like Daytona. So this week's code name is O, the letter O. Let's see if anybody in the chat room knows what O is. I bet nobody knows.
Oh my goodness! I wonder what.
Not the Cirque du Soleil show at the.
No, not the Cirque du Soleil show. It's a real Microsoft code name for something that's out, actually.
That's such a short. It's such a short name.
I've never heard of it.
Oprah, Overstock, OS2, Connect. Somebody said Connect. All WP7 builds end in O. Oscar.
Yes, that's true.
Oxnard. Orgasm.
No.
Oops.
Sorry, guys.
Microsoft Oops. Onyx.
No.
Actually, so can you give us a clue? Does it start with O?
Oompa Loompa?
Does
It does
O
not.
figure
It's a word that
prominently in
ends
the-
with O.
It ends with O.
Yeah, it's a stumper, all right.
Rodeo? I don't know.
Yeah. So O is the code name for Lasso. Lasso is a feature in the new Bing for iPad app
That's
that Microsoft
right.
just came out.
That's right.
And remember, Lasso is what lets you go on the iPad and circle a term that you want to search for. So
Right.
hence the letter O. It looks like an O.
Wow,
How
is
about
that
that?
interesting? And you know what? Well, I'll tell you why I'm actually interested in that, because we had a little battle over that over on iPad today about whether it's lasso or lasso. And now lasso is the common pronunciation, but lasso is how I was always taught to say it. And that would confirm it because it's lasso.
It would.
So I think I win.
I think you win, Leo.
Wow.
And
Your
actually,
last name ends,
my verdict.
first name ends in O, so you won.
Leo and Mango
Leo.
and
Exactly.
Mary Jo.
Leo. I always think of you as Leo.
Thank you, Paul. You too. Thank you, Mary Jo and Paul. Always a lot of fun doing this show, and I like our new setup. Now we're going to still work on this, bringing it back into the into my office because it's more of an intimate set. But actually, I think it's looking and working pretty good. And some of you will notice that we have brought back the clock. It's kind of small, but you can see it on my singles. So many people asked in the chat room, where is the clock? Where's the clock? So we'll figure out a way to get a clock somehow integrated in. I may be thinking, and I don't know what you guys think, maybe of using, we have the capability of actually embedding a digital clock into the screen. But I think
screen?
Like a real, like CNN would do.
Oh, we should do that.
Should we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, chat room, you think so? We'll have a vote, and then I'll ignore it and do what I want to do, because that's how it works here. It's not a democracy. It's Leo's kingdom.
It's a leocracy.
It's a leocracy. Leocracy. Paul Thurrott is the author of so many great books, including the Windows Phone Secrets, Windows 7 Secrets, soon to be Windows 8 Secrets as well. You can find him
And
at
Visual Basic 3 projects for Windows.
I love it. You and some guy named Brent and some guy named Elam worked on that.
Yeah, Gary Brent and Jim Elam, yep.
Or just go to winsupersite.com, Paul's great blog. A lot of the things that we talk about on the show are there or on Mary Jo's blog, allaboutmicrosoft.com. Two great places to get all of your Windows news all week long. And then join us when we do the show every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv. Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. Great to have you. And we'll see you all next time on Windows Weekly.
See you then.
Oh, I want this Nixie clock. Wow.
Wow.
That is what I want.
Steampunk clock.
That is what I want. Where do I get that? Oh, my freaking goodness. I'm buying 3 of these right now. That's totally awesome.
Can you buy replacement?
Oh, it's really small. Wait a minute.
So small. You got 3 of
Never
those?
mind. I'm canceling. It's so small. I'm sure somebody will send us a gift of that.